Among us tonight are many of the leaders of Reform Zionism in Canada. There are too many to name, but you know who you are, and we honor you tonight. We gathered just before the service with Joan Garson and Yair Lootsteen for a conversation between two friends and two partners in the work of Reform Zionism. And it is our pleasure to learn from Yair tonight. Yair Lootsteen is the chair of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism. Those are the 54 sister congregations in Israel. We are like these two anchors, right? Diaspora Jewry and the Jewish people who make Israel their full-time home. Yair was born in London, England. He grew up here in Toronto, and he made Aliyah when he was just 19 years old. And ever since then, he's been living in Jerusalem. He is a lawyer and has served for 23 years in the IDF as legal counsel. And I just learned that almost to the day that he stepped down from those years of devotion to the state of Israel, he was called upon to take up leadership in the Reform movement, became the president of his synagogue, Kol HaNeshama, in Jerusalem, and then continued to lead and to serve the Israeli Reform movement. So Yair, it is our pleasure to welcome you back to Holy Blossom Temple and to learn from you tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much for inviting me to say a few words about the Parashat HaShavua. Parashat HaShavua this week is Ki Tavo, not an easy parasha, a parasha in which we get closer. It's always said 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and it's amongst the other things that we learn during this parasha, through this parasha, is what are called the Habrachot v'Aklalot, the blessings and the curses. The story is told that the people of Israel are crossing into the land of Israel, and they're told to either stand on Mount Gerizim or Mount Ebal, and half of the people are to stand on Mount Gerizim, and the other half on the Mount Ebal, and some of them get the blessings, and some of them get the curses. And I want to concentrate in a short manner, I promise, Rabbi, about one blessing that we got, and that was expressed there. V'natancha Adonai lerosh velo lezanav. And I used proudly in this hallowed place the Plout translation and say, and the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. It's something that is quite remarkable in Israel, and I don't know whether you do this in your tables on Rosh Hashanah, but we have a sort of alternate Seder on Rosh Hashanah, and one of the things that's placed on the Seder, the plate for Rosh Hashanah, is the head of a fish, because we say, we will be the head and not the tail. And I want to tell you, and there's many other things, incredible things that are put on the table. I'll give you one other example. Is something called selik. Selik is beetroot, and we put it, we say, Ve'yistalku oivenu. We use the word, may our enemies be thrown away from us. But I want to go back to the story of the head and not the tail, and tell you something about what we in the Reform movement in Israel have been doing. And I gave little vignettes at a previous talk that we talked earlier and perhaps one of the things that I'm most proud of my years in the movement and as the head of the Israeli movement the last couple of years, is a new program that we have developed. We call it Bait Bakila, a home in the community. It is a home that we opened in the city of Modi'in, a home for 5 young emotionally and intellectually handicapped young men. We rented a place, we've set it up, we got all the regulatory permits for that, but that would be simple. But what we did is that we connected it to one of our communities, to Kilat Yozma in Modi'in. And that Kihila, that congregation is now adopted those 5 young men. They have been become part of that community, and both the young men have enriched that community and are being enriched by it. And it's just a wonderful story. But I want to tell you another little story about that place. Almost exactly a year ago, Gilad Kariv, who is a member of Knesset and was at the time just finished his serving as the CEO of our movement, and I joined these 5 young men at their sukkah in Modi'in. And one of the young men there, we sang and we ate and we laughed and we had a wonderful time. One of the young men there is also called Gilad. And Gilad, the young man, said to Gilad, the member of Knesset, Gilad, I want to go meet the president of the state of Israel. And Gilad said, well, I'll see what I could do. And 4 months later, lo and behold, Gilad and me, Yair, and all the 4 other young men were invited into the house of Isaac Herzog. And he welcomed them with open arms. And it was very moving. The pictures of it are just remarkable. And during that meeting with the president, that same Gilad, the boy, the young man, he's not a boy, a 19-year-old boy, said, Herzog. He didn't say president. He said Herzog. And in Israel, I just have to give it as an aside, on Yom Ha'atzmaut every year, we light 12 torches on Mount Herzl. It's called the Adlakat Mesuot. It's a big honor that everyone gets, or not everyone, 12 people every year. And this Gilad said, Herzog, I want you to make sure that I light one of those candles next year. And the president looked at Gilad Kariv and said, what do I do with this? And lo and behold, I think it's going to happen. So I want to say one other thing about, early in the parasha, we also learn in another context of the fact that we, the Jewish people, are promised Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, the land of flowing with milk and honey. And we, as the Reform movement in Israel, have not actually reached that land of milk and honey, but we're on the way. We're on the way, and I am certain that with partners like yourselves and the hard work that we are doing on the ground, that we will reach the promised land. We will reach the land of milk and honey. And with that, I want to say Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabah. Thank you.